gets a goal? Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Hello everyone, here I am, another year older, another year wiser, but still playing this infernal game. Yes, hope you're all well, and it's fair to say I've been having a better double game week first two than Sam and I have had. Anyway, the curse of the podcaster is that we can't hide away, we can't go quiet for a week like people do on social media if they've had a bad game. Instead, we're here to face the music being played by the FPL gods, offensively in our faces as we desperately try to block out the noise of anything we can find, bin lids, earplugs, fingers, whatever. Joined by Sam. And it's fair to say, as we were saying this morning, we're both kind of looking forward to this, actually, despite my somber opening. As it's one of those cases where the disappointment has been so bad that FPL, podding about FPL becomes sort of therapeutic, I suppose, doesn't it? You're right, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, it's one of those where if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So I think let's veer towards the laughter side of it tonight. I'm not going to lie, Tom. I was pretty triggered over the weekend by it all. So we'll go through all of that mess, but it did get to me a little bit. I'm here to chat it all through. I've calmed down a little bit. I'm smiling about it now, and I know that you've also shared in my woes this week, so it's quite nice to be amongst friends and we can have a little bit of a laugh at it. It's a silly game at the end of the day. Who really cares? But it does get to you every now and then. So this should be a nice therapeutic session. And if you're here to just laugh at us, that is absolutely fine as well. Don't you worry about it. Don't be shy in laughing at us. Do make sure that you get those prods in before the end of the show. In the meantime, though, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's pod, quick, well, maybe not so quick, ranty team update from both of us. We will be venting a little bit, so if you want to skip ahead, then that's fine, but I imagine a lot of you are watching or listening for that exact reason, so enjoy the first 10-20 minutes or so. After that, we'll go into our double game week 33 preview. No knee-jerk this week either. Instead, we'll be focusing on chip usage yet again, triple captaincy versus free hit. And with one of us actually seriously considering leaning towards playing the free hit, that'll be a really interesting discussion. And of course, best captains, which isn't necessarily as clear as we thought it might be this week. Best transfers, of course, comes in again with more likely best differentials as well for 33, with a lot of best transfers being fairly well mapped out. Assistant manager picks covered once again, bold claims, and one is still yet to be finished. So one is still in play there. And of course, finishing off with our teams as they're currently set up for game week 33. It's Tuesday, the 15th of April. Most games have been played, but Newcastle Palace is yet to come, but we can't wait for that. So I think we've both got 6 players yet to play tomorrow. So it's not completely wrapped up. But I think mostly we know where our game weeks are headed now, don't we, Tom? So we better get on with it. We better have a chat about it.
The damage is done. I think we've got a whole section of lamentation. Let's talk through the disaster that was Bench Boost double game week 32 before we try to dissect the root causes of this disaster. But why don't you talk through, if you can bear it, the score and what happened this week for you?
Yeah, it's healthy to talk about these things, isn't it, Tom? Not great. Although what I will say is I am actually on a green arrow, so it's not a nightmare, but I really was expecting more. And it's not so much the score, it's more the way the score was arrived at. And the bench boost, in theory at least, I thought looked pretty strong. I think the bench boost is something that we should probably focus on first. So I had Verbruggen at home to Leicester, who hadn't scored in, I think it was 7 Premier League matches. Yep. Obvious clean sheet wipe out there. Lovely little slip. After that, I'll go on to Asensio last because I think that'll be a nice time to bring you into the conversation too, Tom. Milenkovic, last minute clean sheet wipe out there as well against Everton. And Gvardiol, in fairness, I wasn't expecting anything big from him, but getting 2 goals conceded, no attacking threat, not great. Then on to the thing that we will remember game week 32 from this season for forevermore, bringing in Asensio as a differential. We were both feeling fairly confident on the minutes. We knew that he had a reasonable chance of being on penalties as well. He got 2 of them, and normally you'd be pretty happy about that. So what the hell went wrong there? 2 penalty misses against my own club. Ramsdale's I think the current game week top scorer with 16. And Asensio, luckily, at least got an assist from one of the rebounds. Otherwise, it would have been, I think, negative points or very close. Yeah, it would have been.
It would have been a major achievement unlock, wouldn't it, to bench boost a negative score?
Yeah, and I think he's only the 4th player ever. I think you've got in your notes as well to get 2 penalty misses in 1 Premier League game. The one I will always remember is it Juan Pablo Angel for Villa as well?
It is.
A long time ago. That one always sticks in my memory. I can't remember the other 2. But yeah, a pretty frustrating bench boost. That could have been, if it weren't for the missed penalties, if they were, even one of them was scored and the clean sheet wipeout didn't happen in the last minute against Nottingham Forest, it could have been a really good bench boost. I would have been very happy with it. And it all just evaporated within a blink of an eye. Not to be helped either by Arsenal conceding to Brentford, and of course not too many big scores elsewhere in my 11. But I think a lot of us can kind of relate to the 11, so I don't want to be too miserable about that in particular. It's more the bench boost for us too, isn't it, Tom?
Yes, it is, and obviously Captain Isaac on just over 200% EO, so irrelevant, and also Salah on over 100% EO, so irrelevant. My bench boost was not much better than yours. In fact, it was worse. So you got 7 points, and you're the BSD amongst the 2 of us. I'm the one with the small PRICK, with 1 point from Jose Sarr, a massive 0 pointer from Lewis Dunk, who decided to take leave of his senses and let Leicester score. And then Guardiola, and then, yes, Mr. Asensio himself, which was incredibly frustrating, honestly. Add to that, it was my birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday!
You've got a bit of a fustercluck, really. Yeah. So yeah, only the 4th player to miss 2 penalties in a single game in Premier League history, and one of the worst kind of attacking outputs. Probably, I mean, you tell the grandkids that you bench boost and he got appearance, but that's 2 points, like the hardest way you could possibly get 2 points, isn't it? Through the luckiest assist in the world, like both of them doing the hop, skip, and the jump, and then Ramsdale was being like, "No." It's dreadful, and kind of made me think about John Waters, that famous time when he scored 2 own goals and missed the penalty and got a -4, and not quite as bad as that. But I mean, my happiness hedge this week was the single game week of scoring, being the top scorer. And I didn't have Ramsdale saving 2 of my players' penalties in mind. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous, honestly. Sometimes, like, I admit I think I'm only human. It's hard not to be ticked off by it. Like, bad luck happens in FPL, right? Missing 1 penalty, as you know, right, that happens. But missing 2, that's unreal, isn't it? And there's nothing you can say. Like, it's just like, oh, you failed to account for X multiple missed pens. So yeah, very, very much on the bad side of luck, and obviously, heightened by the fact it was it wasn't actually, it was my birthday, but it was my daughter's party because her birthday is 3 days before mine, so it wasn't really kind of my birthday until the evening when I had a few beers and laughed at myself. But like, it was very like, oh my goodness, like the first one you saw, penalty for Villa, it's Asensio, I always missed it, fine, all right, okay. And I did think to myself, actually, wouldn't it be funny if he had another one, and I'm sure he'll score it. And then sure enough, there was another one, and sure enough, he missed that one as well. And it just, I don't know, Sam, I don't know, I think that it's just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and the fact that it's so close, and the fact that Asensio was so low owned that
he got the minutes as well. Like he got the penalties, he got the minutes. Everything you wanted in him as an asset that week was ticked off, and yet.
Oh, it's just the darkest timeline, isn't it? That's all I can say. Like, I jokingly post out when I was saying, "Oh, we'll come join us live tonight," that we're celebrating our stonking bench boosts with Asensio's 2 pens. Like, even if he scores 1, then we're kind of laughing, aren't we? It's just,
you're fine. I
just can't believe it. Like, something like Dunk, whatever. Like, yeah, Leicester hadn't scored for 7 games. Brighton have got a pretty patchy record against the bottom 6. whatever, that could have happened. So Guardiola getting 1 point, sure, fine. Jose Sarr, I mean, he was just there because I couldn't fit in any of the 4.5 goalkeepers. Fine, I would have gotten Verbruggen anyway. But yeah, man, Asensio, nowhere near my Christmas list. Nowhere near. In fact, he'll get a, don't know what the opposite for Christmas card is. Some excrement through the mail.
I was about to say fecal matter might come into the conversation here. One thing before we move on, because I've just thought about this, but I reckon every single worst moment of my season has come courtesy of Southampton in one way or another. We've been monumentally bad all season. Like, so much misery has been caused by their performance all year. And as a fan, obviously that hurts the most. But outside of that, all of the biggest calls I've made, Asensio this week against Southampton, Palmer captain, all the way back. I think it was game week 27, 28 against Southampton. I think they won 4-0. Palmer did nothing. And Mateta a couple of weeks ago came off early before the 60th minute for a blank. Guess who against? Southampton, of course. So all of my worst moments, I reckon, revolve around Southampton, and they haven't exactly given me any moments to cheer for on the pitch either. So yeah, well done, Saints. Really, really glad that you were in the Premier League this year. Thanks so much for that. Look forward to seeing you more often in the Championship next year.
And also throw into the party Erling Haaland's single most XG in a game when I triple captained him against Southampton.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, you people in the comments are saying as well, but you can only laugh at it, and you look at it and you think, and we're a few days out now, and it's okay. We're both well-adjusted human beings. Like it kind of did. I think it's hard not to piss you off on the weekend, but it's within the confines of sensibility. Us being a bit pissed off at FPL. It's not it's not a deep-rooted psychological thing. It's just one of those things where it's just like, oh my goodness, you can't that level of negative variance, shit, luck, like all of those things, you can't help but feel it, especially when it's bench boost plus birthday bench boost for me. Like, oh yeah, it's just
at the end,
it's wild.
It is a story though. Like in 2, 3, 4 years time, like the same way that at the time Mane going off injured in the double game week when everyone triple captained him was horrible for those who did it. It is quite funny looking back, and I think time is a bit of a healer on this, and it does add a layer to the story that is our FPL careers. And as much as it hurts now or is annoying now, I think in a year's time we'll be making a similar pod about bench boost and like, do you remember last year though, Tom? And we'll have a bit of a laugh about it. So these things happen. It hurt at the time, but even a couple of days after, I think we're both relatively okay with it now.
Yeah, a sense that goes down in the annals of history, maybe one N less than the word annals. Very annoying. And I'm probably going to end up keeping him for quite a while. So hopefully he can pay me back.
That's an interesting discussion. We'll get on to that.
Yeah, we'll get on to that indeed. But yeah, it could happen to you. Basically, but don't let it put you off what your plans. Obviously, it was a good fit. We got the minutes, and we bought a player who was on penalties, and this is like an extreme example of what could possibly happen for people who went there. You can never ever legislate something like this, and when it does happen, it's going to piss you off if you take FPL fairly seriously, that we both do. Not that our ranks show it, and then after that, you can then laugh about it, and as Sam says, have a story that you can always remember. Certainly your 30th birthday, that's gonna be a really interesting story in the future, isn't it? Hey, I had a really lovely day, went for a pub lunch, spent time with my family, my daughter had a great time.
I made a worse enemy for life.
Exactly. Someone got onto my fecal list, I mean, it's all good. All right. Okay. Enough of that. Let's look to the week ahead and leave that in our rearview mirror. As Sam said, this week again we're going to slightly rejig everything. So normally it's the knee jerk, best transfers, etc. This time it's the chip debate a little bit. Last week we looked at bench boost and triple captain, all this sort of thing. This time it's triple captain. We'll do best captains kind of first and foremost, just because I think Sam was looking to use it. If you bench boost last week, I'm sure, and you've got triple captain in the pocket, maybe this is the week you would be looking at it. Many of you are on bench boost, and we'll obviously speak about that. And free hit, I am really looking at it, and I will talk about that at some point. Well, in a little while. But the first bit, is triple captaincy for Sam in terms of the chip use. So you didn't frisk yours away on Southampton a little while ago, and you got it in the pocket. And this week was the week that a few weeks ago you were saying, "Oh, I think I'm sort of looking at it." And you've got the Moosh, and you probably got Saka, and I did have a look at in the bad place and the good place for kind of just had a little scroll through for sentiment on my way home from work. And I was quite surprised because I thought a lot of people were kind of saying, Bukayo, star boy, definitely the captain. But a lot of the polls on the bad place and a lot of kind of the sentiment does seem to kind of be around the Moosh now, in terms of the captaincy for this week. He's been my captain since the bus team was settable, and even if I do free hit, I think he will end up with my captaincy. But do you trust him, Sam, if you are looking to triple captain? We'll come on to Saka's X minutes in a moment, because I just finished listening to Adam Pritchard speaking on Clash Correspondence with Planet FPL as well, so I'll kind of layer in what he said as well. But where are you standing on this? Do you still have to, are you looking to activate the chip, or are you just kind of thinking, just normal captain this week and use it another time?
Yeah, I'm on the buzzer. The finger's there. I'm pretty close to doing it. I think before confirming anything, I need to see Saka against Real Madrid tomorrow, because ideally I do want it to be Saka. And I was going to mention the same thing regarding X Blue Sky. The sentiment is changing, and it does seem like there's a bit of a wave of Marmoush triple captaincy or captaincy kind of building now. And Saka's kind of moved below him in the tier list for captaincies this week. And I think if I didn't have a Twitter account, I wouldn't have even noticed that coming. I wouldn't have even thought about it. But there is logic there. I understand it. Marmoush's minutes probably a little bit more guaranteed with Haaland out. He's getting a lot of big chances. He should be on penalties. 2 reasonable fixtures. Saka probably has slightly better fixtures, considering one is the promoted side, but maybe within that, given that he's been coming back from a long injury, is he going to get the minutes? And I think whether or not I use the triple captaincy this week is going to come down to my judgment of Saka's expected minutes across those 2 game weeks. If I think he starts both, I will use it on him. If I don't, then I will probably not use it on him. And then I've got a debate as to whether it's worth going now on Marmoush, or maybe just leaving it in my back pocket for what looks like a likely double game week in 36. And if it doesn't happen, there's a couple of nice fixtures in the back 4 that I might be able to just try and grab some variants on. So I think in a way it tempts me more to use it on Saka, because people are put off, and that's because I'm chasing at the end of the day. I'm 290k. I need to do something a little bit different, and triple captaincy is one of those weapons that I've still got. I was a little bit worried coming into this game week that if I did put it on Saka, it's almost too template and it's a bit boring. But now that people are moving away from him, it actually makes me feel a little bit more confident that it would give me the edge if I can judge his minutes correctly. Again, this all comes down to whether or not he gets very significant minutes and looks healthy and fit come the end of the Real Madrid game. If he gets 90 and hobbles off the pitch exhausted, then it's probably going to be unlikely he starts against Ipswich. But if he gets 60 and looks fine coming off the pitch, and that maybe they're tying the game at 60 minutes and they feel like they can bring him off and put Nwaneri in, then I reckon he's in line for 2 starts. Because although it doesn't look likely that they'll get back into the league, Arteta and Arsenal won't think about it in that way. And I imagine they'll play their strongest 11 against Ipswich as much as they possibly can. So, yeah, I need to wait on Real Madrid, really. But I'm not as tempted on triple captaining Marmoush. And if Saka's not the guy, I might be tempted to just hold off.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I think a lot of it does hinge on that Real Madrid game. And Adam on Clash Correspondence was saying that probably thinks that Saka comes on that kind of half time against Ipswich and then starts the Palace game. I think that there's kind of 2 parts of that. So one, I mean, Ipswich have been no great shakes this year. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody in terms of the underlying defensive data. Second only to the mighty Saints for XGA. And Palace we'll come on to this again a bit more when I talk about the free hit team that I'm potentially looking at. But Palace have nothing to play for in the league whatsoever. Their whole season probably is hinging on that FA Cup semi-final, right? That's the only thing they've really got to play for. I wonder the nature of that team. That on one hand, you're going to have Arsenal probably having a bit of a rotating team versus Ipswich, and probably because we haven't got a game at the weekend, the strongest team against Palace that in the midweek. Whereas Palace may well go the other opposite way and probably may play a strong team against Bournemouth. But again, they've got Newcastle tomorrow night. They might be tired. They might be tired already. So by the time they get to game 4, if you've got a combination of tired legs from 4 games in 2 weeks, plus you've got the greater focus being on the weekend, like I think that is 60 minutes, 70 minutes of Saka in that. I'm not going to say no to that really, as it is. So I do quite like the Saka captaincy, because even if he doesn't start against Ipswich, you probably got an okay chance. If I'm speaking about purely captaincy, I think you probably got an okay chance of some semblance of a return there. And then if he starts against Palace, I think that could be quite good. In terms of triple captaincy, though, I probably look at that and think probably the minutes aren't quite there for me to be doing it, just because it's probably like the least powerful chip. I think that's fair to say, right, Sam? But it's still probably one where I'd hold off, as you say, and look for a moment later on in the season. Speaking of Southampton destroying seasons, I mean, then you'd be looking at if the 36 doubles do come to pass, if things do come out as projected, then you'd be looking at Man City, Southampton, and Bournemouth later on in the season. In 36 as a potential double that could come through there. I do think Marmoush is doing so. He's tracking. I checked earlier on at 0.65 XGI per 90 at the moment, which puts him about 12 overall. It's good. More than happy with that. On free kicks, as we've seen, got a blistering shot on him. I've watched probably about 5 or 6 Frankfurt games this year, and he definitely seems like he's hitting his stride really in terms of that. He has been playing kind of a bit further, like nominally he's kind of posted out wide, but I mean he's just coming inside, isn't he?
He's an inside forward.
Exactly, and maybe on penalties as well. I would not be surprised if he puts his hand up and takes one.
Surely,
if that situation arose, was taking him for Frankfurt, as I said, when he first joined the league. So, I mean, it's more of an okay kind of proposition, really. We just don't know, because the Everton game is kind of neutral, I'd say. I'm not excited about it, but I'm not unexcited about it. And City have kind of hit their stride a little bit over recent weeks, that's for sure. Apart from the United game, but and then the Villa game is just going to be very difficult to call, isn't it, because of what's going on the weekend, which is why neither of us bench boosted this. We're planning to bench boost this week because of that, the muddiness and the murkiness of what's going on. But I don't know. I think minutes wise, I'd put Marmoush ahead of Saka for this week. I think opposition wise, I'd probably put Saka ahead of Marmoush for this week. And I'd be gambling that within the minutes that Saka does get, that he'd be able to get a return given a weak initial opposition and then a tired and rotated second opposition. But in terms of triple captain, if you want to kind of add that extra layer on top, that, I don't know, Sam, I'd be a little bit put off if it was me, but I completely understand why you might think, hey, this is a great opportunity. It looks like kind of a lot of the key content creators are going to come out on Marmoush's side. And so that could be like, decreasing the effective ownership for a Saka and gives you some real headway, really. I mean, if he comes out 130, 140% EO and you've got the TC stuck on him, say he's gets a goal off the bench against Ipswich and then gets a goal and assist in the second game, then you're absolutely flying, aren't you?
Yeah. I think that's exactly it. It's knowing where and when to take calculated risks. And if the risk is on expected minutes, then if he gets 120 to 150 minutes, I'm actually fairly confident that it could work as a triple captaincy. If he gets more like 90 minutes across the double, then you might as well be looking at a single game weeker. Obviously, he'll get the extra appearance point, which is quite nice, but it's not quite good enough. So I agree that it all comes down to the minutes. Again, yeah, I'll wait to see how he does at Real Madrid tomorrow, because we could be having a completely different discussion if he comes off injured, or if for whatever reason they just rest him, which isn't impossible. I think it's unlikely, but we'll know a lot more this time tomorrow, I think. I'm still pretty tempted to do it. I think that I've consistently underestimated minutes on important players this year, as we did with Rodgers in game week 32. And he is back fit. And I think the only reason they rested him against Brentford was with an eye on the Real Madrid game. Otherwise, they probably would have just played him through. And if they've got that break after the Palace game, I don't see why they can't have him play both matches, or at least 60 minutes in one and then maybe 70 or 80 in the other. It's a risk. I get that, but I need to take a risk or two. And whilst I like Marmoush, I think Saka just represents someone that there's just so much explosive upside there. Whereas with Marmoush, maybe it's there. We've seen it obviously with the hat trick once, but I do just wonder if Saka's many different avenues to points will finally come home to roost in this one. I am tempted to have a look at game week 36 as well, but
yeah,
I think Saka, if he is around 110 to 140% EO and I've triple captained him, that could be a huge edge. So yeah, it's something I'm still very closely considering.
it all hinges on tomorrow night, doesn't it? And then Wednesday to Sunday is not the worst. It isn't the worst sort of gap either. So I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, if you do go for it, I think that I'm not going to tell you no. And in fact, from me talking about the state of the opposition, I might be very tempted if the wind does blow towards Marmoush, because I'm not particularly excited by the double that City have got. It's an okay double, but it's not the best double I've ever seen. Whereas Arsenal is actually really good, and outside of the modern era of content creators dictating and influencing, where people do kind of move their captaincies a lot, you might be looking at that double, try to shear out the context, assume everything's going to be okay, and you think, yeah, that is a really cracking double if you apply some context, especially when it comes to Palace. The other one, a friend of the pod, Tom Campbell, said on Planet FPL that he was looking at maybe just going against the grain, just shoving on Salah against Leicester. I mean, that's not the worst call in the world, is it? Really? Okay, admittedly, it has been a bit quiet for a few weeks, but I mean, it is Leicester who, they can score goal. But again, third from bottom for XGC. Shockingly, Ipswich and Southampton are third from the bottom three for XGC. Not too far away from Ipswich in terms of that. And surely Liverpool do absolutely rampage over the Foxes. So, I mean, that could be an option as well if you're just thinking, you know what, I just want a player who's going to probably play 90 minutes. Potential.
Yeah, look, if your estimation of X minutes are low on Saka, Marmoush, Kevin De Bruyne, for instance, then yeah, look no further than Salah with a fantastic fixture. I like you say, Salah's form hasn't actually been that blistering as of late, but again, fixtures beget form more often than not, and that is a hell of a fixture to get him going again. So yeah, I wouldn't complain if anyone wanted to go there for him. I do think that attacking the double is the worthwhile thing to do. You'll be able to find someone who will get the expected minutes that I think probably beats Salah most times. But it's a nice safe pick. And to be fair, his effective ownership will be lower than it normally is. So if you want to gain any benefit from Salah, it'll probably be hovering at about 110, 105% effective ownership. So yeah, captaining him would probably give you that sword. Whereas like we said, a Marmoush, a Saka, a De Bruyne, maybe one or two of them will hit over 100%, but they won't be miles over. So it's not like they'll massively punish you if you own them. So yeah, I don't hate it. I think there's slightly more upside in attacking someone with two fixtures if you think you can find the expected minutes there. But yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off of going with Salah just if you wanted to be safe.
Definitely. I mean, it is a tricky game week, isn't it? I think that nicely segues us on to the bench boost. There's a picture of mine, just for my own torture.
It's a thing of beauty.
but obviously, if you didn't bench boost in 32 and you haven't used it already, this is probably the prime territory to be using it. And the reason why we didn't use it in this week, as has been discussed in the past, it was just because we weren't sure about the minutes, and we've already started tackling that. But yeah, I mean, this is the week where it is going to be played for a lot of people. It's a week that's wide open for rotation. Both games vulnerable for doublers in terms of coming off the Champions League game and then the FA Cup game, and going into the FA Cup game for game 2. So I think that okay, all right, our outcomes are rubbish, but your expectations do have to be lowered in terms of getting 180, 190 points. It might happen, but I don't think it's going to be kind of quite one of those weeks. But yeah, I mean, this week, Sam, in terms of the bench boost, people's teams, from what I've seen, do still look pretty strong. And yeah, I mean, expectations have to be kind of where they are, I guess, in terms of kind of the caveats surrounding the rotation that we're probably going to be seeing.
Yeah, I think we maybe have to taper a little bit what the upside might be on a bench boost, but that's still not to say it can't be good. It can be a lot better than what we got anyway. So if you've optimized your team on a wild card, let's say for bench boost 33, it probably does look pretty decent. Maybe you've got some West Ham players in there against Southampton. You've probably got 10, 11, 12 doublers, maybe including a doubling keeper on your bench as well. So there's definitely opportunity there. And yeah, I mean, we would be biting your hand off for a 10-point bench boost right now. I think if you can get somewhere between 15 to 20, you're laughing and you're having a really good time of it, which is definitely possible on a bench boost 33. There's players there. There's still fixtures to attack. I wouldn't say there are quite as many great fixtures to attack, but even if you've got Newcastle assets away at a tired Villa side, having played what is looking like a hell of a game at Villa Park right now, then if they can go the distance tonight in that one or push PSG all the way, that could be an interesting one to just have on a bench boost as well. Maybe not so much defensively, but if you've got an Isak or a Murphy or someone like that on your bench, they could easily get an attack and return or two. So yeah, I don't think it's maybe one of those in seasons past where you're eyeing up. Well, you obviously can't eye up 15 doublers, but you can get to 12. You've got some strong single options there, and a bench boost can still look really decent. So if you've optimized for it, don't be put off. There will be a bit of rotation, but in a way, you can look at that as a positive in the sense that, well, at least any players I do pick are likely to get some minutes because there will be rotation. If you can nail down a player to get 120 to 150 minutes in your doubles and make sure that your single game week players are starting the matches, that's all you can really hope for. And I think most of us, even not on a bench boost, will have the same problems with the doublers because those teams are the ones that might rotate. The single game weekers probably won't. They'll probably just be relatively normal game week for them because they don't have to worry about the midweek fixture afterwards. Whereas the doublers are actually the ones that me or you might have, Tom, your Aston Villa, your Man City, your Crystal Palace. They might be the ones rotating, but no one really has any difference there anyway because we're all starting them regardless. Your bench boost is the other players, the single game weekers that we probably won't have as many of.
Yeah, exactly. And one, it can't get worse. You can't do worse than us. If you have, I'll personally buy you a drink at the final FPL meets because you'll need it. Although it will be kind of quite delayed until May, but you'll definitely need it. And also, I do think it's feasible just to kind of have the, I wouldn't say the 16-point kind of lower threshold of old kind of applies here because of what's going on and the lack of doubles plus kind of everything in terms of the contextual rotation threat. So I'd say that just temper your sights a little bit. But I think that the bench boost kind of out there does look pretty good. We'll come on to players to bring in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. That's what I told myself about this week's bench boost, Sam, for us, and it's going to be the same for you. But you can't do as badly as we did, and that is a very low bar. But nonetheless, it's always good to have a low bar because it's easy to jump over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you'll be happier than us, unless there's a 3 missed penalty thing, in which case that's going down in Stuff of Legend. But it's not happening. You're not beating us in terms of low scores. It's just not possible.
No.
Right then. So, an interesting segment that I honestly didn't think we'd be talking about until this morning when you messaged me, Tom. you want to walk through what you're thinking with your chip strategy?
Yeah, so I think some people may have the capacity to do this if you bench boost in 33. I just say look at your 34 and see what it looks like, because like it's an unintended consequence of some of the edge piece picks for 32. Bench boost in there means that I've got the likes of Sar and Dunk, if Dunk plays, who have games. I'm on 8 men for 34, and they're good too. So I've got the key ones like Salah, triple Newcastle in place. So I'd take a -4, get 10, maybe even -8 for an 11, and have quite a good team. So it's not like it's like borderline really for whether you free hit or not. And then I looked at from that, speaking to my friend of the pod, James FPL, about it. And I looked at that, and I looked at kind of 33, and if I did a free hit in 33, what that would look like. And I don't know, I looked at the two kind of teams side by side, an FPL team, and I kind of felt that there was maybe more potential upside in buying in players for the double rather than buying in players for the single. It's arguable, of course, because you're often buying in players for who are over players who are also playing. If you're buying in players for next week, versus in the free hit, you're removing non-playing players for playing players. So I definitely see that, but optimizing for the biggest double in the year, and I'll be making a fair few changes and try and jump on a few kind of short-term risks. It actually feels like it's like an acceptable line of reasoning, I guess, Sam. Versus when I looked at my 34, I was going to make a few changes, but not loads, if that makes sense. I mean, maybe it would have, I'm theory crafting, so maybe with 34, lots more would have happened. I would have had to make a few more changes. So this could fall on its arse, but I mean, it always will. I mean, Simon, who we had in the pod a little while ago, he free hitted in game week 9, didn't he? So people will take these chips wherever they want to. But basically, it enables kind of short-term risk for players. I don't want longer term. I will obviously wait for later in the week before confirming anything, of course. But so if something like Arsenal winning against Real Madrid, that might want to bear in mind. So maybe our assets kind of move into the potentially avoid category ahead of a showdown in Champions League finals. Maybe I don't want to own those players. A player like Kevin De Bruyne, maybe the situation he's in at the moment in that kind of purple patch. He's the sort of player that I would like for this week, but maybe won't want for the rest of the season. A player like Morgan Rogers really want for this week to cover my arse effectively, but do I want him for the rest of the season? Not really. And so it's always going to be a bit of a subjective case either side, but I quite like it. And I can also, minor point, leverage my ludicrous team value. Maybe my last opportunity to actually do that. So it's about trying to weigh up whether I'm simply blowing stuff up through frustration or whether it's legitimate strategy. But I genuinely not looked at my game week 34 team and how it looked without free hit, because I was just like, there's no point in planning all this until I was kind of just idly looking at FPL on yesterday, and I realized, wow, actually this is pretty viable. So just to show you what I mean, an example of a free hit that I put together. So you stick with Raya in goal, right? That's absolutely fine. There's going to be a few things here that I have which are kind of provocative, but I've got reasons for it. But most of it is actually quite formulaic. Saliba, who I don't own, would then come in. Not sure whether I want him in future if Arsenal do get through, because the Bournemouth game in 35 is sandwiched between the next legs, I believe. Vardyar, who I do have, he'd stay. Conor Bradley would fill out the back three. I've got none of one particular team, and I'll explain why in a minute. Saka, who I don't own, would come in. Maybe between him and the Moosh for the armband. De Bruyne would come in midfield. Salah would stay, and then I'd have Bowen and Rogers. Do you see who I might have missed here? And then up front, I've got Marmoush and one of Isaac or Watkins. And that kind of is a 3-5-2 that I can put together and think that's actually a really kind of solid team for this week. It makes kind of quite a few transfers. So ignore the bench. It moves 6 players in who I think are kind of in some ways optimal for this week. And crucially, Sam, I'm very cold on Palace at the moment for the reasons that we began to discuss earlier on. I'm kind of looking at them and thinking, right, okay, I think Munoz versus a Bradley, I think that, Munoz being Munoz, he can probably he's probably got like the fitness to play the Arsenal game, and they've got a lack of. I don't think they rotate 11 for 11. And I think that he's got enough sort of sufficient attacking threat to maybe think, okay, well, maybe I'll go for him. But like Sarr and Mateta, right? Okay, so they've got Bournemouth. They come off kind of two games in the week. They're going into another 2 games in the week. One of those games, the Arsenal game, being absolutely sort of, at the worst possible time for them, really. Those 2 players versus a Rodgers or a Bowen. It would be a Bowen in this case, I think. Who's
Yeah.
got 90 minutes versus Southampton versus what I'd assume to be maybe kind of maybe 70, 80 versus Bournemouth, and who knows against Arsenal. And in the case of Mateta, not only Mateta, I just can't see him starting against Arsenal. I just don't see the point. So, have him versus Bournemouth, and then who knows versus Arsenal versus Nizak, or maybe even a Watkins who hasn't started tonight, reading the Villa tea leaves once more. So, I don't know. I really like this particular team. Obviously, I've got really high sell value, which informs the fact that I can kind of buy this team. My bench is absolute crap. I haven't even spoken about it. And so it's like Henderson and Concern, and you've got Ndai and Johnson, 3.8 Ipswich rounding out to get me to like 0.1 in the bank, something like that. But I really like that. We'll talk about the single game weekers and how they shouldn't be underestimated in a minute, especially if you're an assistant manager. But I think that there's definitely potential here to optimize this week. Next week, I haven't put that team on because there's just too much of like, oh, here's what my team and what I possibly do. But just to give a flavour of next week, I would own still, all of the key points. So I would own your triple Newcastle, would own Salah, would have the Forest defensive coverage, whatever that's worth. I still have Jose Sarr in goal. I'd be able to get in Cunha and probably get a midfield like a Boomer or something who's going to kind of pay off long term. And long term, if there's any long term left. And I'd have to play Lewis Dunk, but I mean that's by the by. But I think that for the Potter derby, I mean, will he be massively motivated? No, that's not even going to that. But yeah, I've got a decent-ish team for game week 34. It'd be 10 men. It'll take a hit. So I'm just wondering whether I'd make the games this week to then kind of make the 34 whatever immaterial. So yeah, that's kind of where I am, Sam. I do really like it. I'm worried that I'm trying to blow stuff up potentially, but I do also, on the other hand, think it's actually a legitimate strategy because of just unintended consequence, effectively, for how I fell when it came to 32 wildcard. Thanks for coming for my TED talk. Please tell me why.
Subscribe. See you later. No.
Yeah. Please tell me how I'm wrong and why I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think what you're doing here is a bit of an X minutes bet against the market, where Palace, maybe we're all committed to them because of chip strategy, because of the doubles back to back. But I think if you're free hitting, it gives you the freedom to make that bet against them on the second game, which makes complete sense because it's not even a great double in the first place. Let's face it. The only reason we've got triple Palace, or a lot of us are exposed to Palace, is because they've had back to back doubles and obviously had good fixtures before that. So with the free hit, you've got the flexibility to bet against that. You also aren't overly exposed on Aston Villa, who themselves have had a very tight fixture schedule. They've just come off the back of what is looking like an incredible game against PSG. And then they've got Newcastle, Man City, 2 tough games. They are gunning it for Champions League, so I don't think they'll want to rotate too much, but they do have the depth to do so a bit. So again, maybe not betting too heavily on them is quite a good call from you there. You've also got someone like a KDB, which I'm jealous of because I can only get to one of Saka or KDB on a free hit. Of course, you can have both. And KDB is one of those players where the reason I wouldn't go there potentially is because long term, I don't like the expected minutes. But if he starts one and gets 30, 40 minutes in the other of this double, he could be fantastic for this week only. So yeah, love that. Love the fact that you can just pile straight into double Liverpool as well with Bradley, who a lot of people won't be able to get to. I think that actually pound for pound, Bradley is probably a better option than Munoz this week. But I also, in the same breath, don't think it's worth a transfer for any of us who already have Munoz. So again, it's attacking there. No one's going to have Bowen, or very few people not on a bench boost will have Bowen. So again, great fixture. I honestly can't really fault it. The only thing that I might suggest is that maybe go a little bit more aggressive on Isak. Maybe go Watkins and just back the and hope for pay off.
This was done before the team news tonight.
Yeah,
so I think
that makes
sense. Been a 50-50 for that one.
Yeah, I think now, given that they've made 2 subs and he's still not on the pitch, by the way, and we're into the 75th minute, I think Watkins should be in line to start, barring the injury being like worse than we thought it was, and he's just not fit. But I think given Isak's effective ownership will be quite high, I'm looking through this team and I will have 7 of these players come game week 33. That's not to say there is an upside in the other 4, but if you remove Isak and bet against it on the minutes for Watkins, if you're confident that obviously he gets the minutes across the double, then we're down to 6 similarities versus what would be the majority of like the template team, I would say. And that probably gives you enough upside to really attack and make a bit of difference out of this. So yeah, I don't dislike it at all. It's not a strategy that I can quite get to because I'm in a worse position for 34 if I were to pivot. And when you text me this morning about it, I was like, am I missing something here? Can I do that? And I'm a player or 2 behind you when it comes to 34, so I can't do it. But I wouldn't let that put you off because you're in a stronger position for 34. And I think it's very dependent on that scenario. I like the individual players you've got here. I think there's upside, and I think this could really pan out for you. It's just, yeah, a shame for me that I can't quite get there. The only thing I'd say is maybe just be a tad more aggressive with Isak.
Is that we're coming for? I think Watkins will probably come in. The other,
He's literally just came off the bench, by the way,
I
75
saw.
minutes. Yeah.
The other plus actually is that in 34, I can then remove a couple of Palace players. So again, I'd be for 35 coming out maybe
Without
transfer ahead despite the hit. I don't know. It's Brighton, I think, in 35, isn't it?
Yeah. They've got Forest, I think, as well. Very close. I can't remember when exactly.
Yeah,
It might be 35.
No, I think it's Forest 35, isn't it? When
Yeah.
I think of Brighton, oh no, that's silly. I was thinking something else. But yeah, no, I think that maybe I end up with Bumo already in the team, and then probably I probably have to go for Cunha with 934 in 34 because they've got Leicester or Cunha or Larson actually. If Larson scores again, I think he'll play rather than Cunha.
Who have Brentford got that week? Sorry.
Brentford have got Forest away, but that's a huge game. If things go, it could be that I just go for Wissa for the longer term again. You know what I mean? It's happened for the rest of the year. Or it could be that I Dodds just said in the chat and die. So it might be that I take a 1 week punt on a Wolves player. I'm not above this sort of thing now. I think the end of the season, and we'll come on to this in a couple of weeks. I think the end of the season is literally going to be target the bottom 3 and getting players. And Everton having Ipswich at home in 35 and Saints home in 37 are just must own one of the attackers, I think. So maybe I'd be kind of just thinking, I'll have a Cunha or a Larson to take on the free hit team, the free hitters, and then go from there. Downside is I've got to kind of keep Cole Palmer for the rest of the for a little while, unless I take another hit at some point. So I won't own Saka, and I won't own the second kind of Arsenal defender. So there's quite a lot to kind of bear in mind. But I just wonder whether there's going to be a little bit of upside this week. If I'm competitive in 34, then in 35 I can maybe come out in a slightly different shape to everybody else, but I think I kind of need that at this point. So if I come out in the same shape as everybody else and follow the same kind of strategies of everybody else, then maybe that's not great. And we discussed a little while ago before kind of the chips literally and figuratively fell as they did, how 33 could be a really good week to free hit. It's just it didn't quite kind of happen, and it kind of just escaped me until Monday when I was chatting to James that actually my 34 just isn't that terrible. And I've got a lot of the key players for that week, or at least the key kind of bases covered. It's just a case of taking them -4 and removing players who aren't playing. So I'm less upset about doing so to make that sort of work. So yeah, I quite like this. I'm only kind of, I know it's a bit of a self-indulgent section, but all I would say is if you do look at your 34, especially if you're a 32 bench booster, and you think, oh, actually, I've got quite a few players here that I've kind of bumbled into owning, maybe think about it as a potential differential. I think if we'd done better this week, say if Asensio had scored both those penalties, I don't know if I'd be looking at this really, which is probably the kind of the big but about it. So it's always good to cover all the angles. but maybe I would be. I don't know. I don't live in that world. I live in the dark world, Sam, where things are sad and everyone hates FPL. But I do really
Certainly we
like.
do.
But I do really like this as a potential strategy, and I do really like the idea of leveraging that ridiculous team value that I've got for a moment. Yeah, I mean, it's just something. I was expecting you to kind of have some sort of pithy point that made me think, oh, actually, this is a terrible idea. But I'm glad that you don't.
No, I
Actually,
don't think it's a terrible idea.
Which is worrying. It worries me.
Yeah, well, if I don't think it's a terrible idea, it probably is a terrible idea given my state of affairs this year. But yeah, I think the only asterisk I'd have on it is that maybe there's not a ton of upside, given there are still similarities with the bus scheme for most people. But I think there's enough upside there, especially now Watkins looks likely to start, that you can probably make an edge out of it. So yeah, I don't dislike it whatsoever. I just can't get there. So it's very situational. That could be your advantage.
Yeah, and the key word there is situational, right? So I think if you do have a team which constitutes the following players, who I think are probably the ones you, if you're just covering downside, you probably should own this week. If you have a team which has the following players: Raya, Saliba, Gvardiol, Saka, Salah, Rogers, Marmoush, probably Isaac as well, which I'm probably going to have to take on. But Isaac, if you own him, then I think those are like the 7 key players, right? So I think you're probably going to be okay either way, and it's about those edge pieces again. And if I'm free hitting, yeah, you're right that in terms of this, my edge piece would be a Watkins versus Nizak, a Bowen, who, as you said, no one's likely to own, but the Saints game, how's that going to go? Missed penalty.
I don't own him, so he's going to get a hat trick.
in my particular situation, people might think, oh, why are you getting Rodgers in the free hit? Well, I mean, I don't own him, and I think that this is the kind of week that I would want to own him. I suppose. I mean, I could look at a Rashford or could look at something else, but I don't know. I think that'd probably be all right. And then a Bradley versus a Munoz against Leicester. I mean, would you want a Bradley long term? We don't know what's going to go on with Trent, but against Leicester for that 1 week, fair enough. So you'd be hoping for the differentials to come through, and a few of them, crucially, are single game weekers, which is kind of onto the differentials, and I think we shouldn't overlook the single game weekers this week, especially if you're on system manager, right, Sam? So someone like a Bowen could potentially be an interesting kind of buy-in. Someone like a Bradley, if you're wildcarding him 34 particularly, could be a really interesting buy-in. And then obviously you've probably got Salah, but other than that, I don't know. It kind of feels like the West Ham, the Bowen angle could be an interesting one for some people to look at. It's just that if you're thinking about your team and how you're set up, Sam, particularly, it's like there's no room at the inn really for Bowen, is there?
No, and again, it's that second or third midfielder spot that most would target for Bowen. And given Salah's taking up one spot for a lot of us, and then you've got that second spot probably going to one of Saka or KDB as the differential, he could be possibly an interesting differential to pick up. Then it's quite tough to sort of squeeze in a Bowen in that third spot. Not many of us have the budget for that. You might be able to get away with it, but given our structures from the last couple of weeks usually incorporate a Sar maybe or an Eze, who again have a double game week, so you're probably not getting rid of them actively for someone with a single game week, as good as it is. You also might not have the budget to upgrade either. After that, Murphy, again, most people can't upgrade Murphy all the way to a Bowen either. Plus, there's not really a priority to do so. You're running out of midfield spots to even bring him in with. So, yeah, I think he's one of those players that it would be a really lovely to have. If you've set up on a bench boost with him, then you're absolutely loving life. And like you, if you're on a free hit potentially, then he could be the ultimate differential, possibly alongside someone like a Luis Diaz, who, again, great fixture around that same sort of price point, actually in really good form at the moment and hasn't been talked about much. So, yeah, someone like a Diaz or a Bowen. I don't even hate an Mbermo, honestly, against Brighton. Any of those in that sort of mid-price midfielder category could be your little differential edge piece this week if you can get to them. It's just quite hard to get to them for anyone with using free transfers to do so, because you've already got quite a lot of doublers in that midfield, and why would you take them out now?
Yeah, if for whatever reason you've not kind of got your third Palace yet, and the spot is in midfield, that would be the point where you'd be like, yeah, okay, maybe because of what we said already, maybe that would be where you would open the door to a Bowen or something. Differential pickups elsewhere, Villa obviously does open, is obviously kind of open to most people. Watkins, Rashford, Marlon, or Asensio. Any chance I've written here, any of these low-owned players in the attacking Villa setup could be overlooked, either in actual teams or bench boosts. Now, Rodgers obviously very highly owned, and I suspect, Sam, that you would be kind of thinking, yeah, okay, if I own Rodgers, I keep Rodgers. If you've got a Concer or something hanging around, then absolutely fine for your bench boost, leave it there. Say ditto Martinez, but I don't know. It feels very much like they're kind of free hit only, aren't they, rather than players you would be looking to bring in now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think going into tonight, I was expecting maybe a Rashford bench and a Watkins start, but given Rashford started again, I think his expected minutes probably reduce a little bit across the double as well. Otherwise, he would have been a lovely little differential to go with. I'm going to say it. I'm going to have to talk about Asensio. I think there's still a relatively decent chance he's a good option for the double. I don't hate holding on to him now, the more I think about it. Obviously, horrific experience with him already. But these things do tend to have like a karmic response over time. And I do wonder if, given he hasn't started the Champions League tonight, he's come off the bench. So we'll have to make sure he's fine come the end of the game. But should he be in line to start at least one of the two in the double? Yeah, probably. Is he still on penalties? Well, maybe not. And even if he was, is that a good thing? I don't know. He might not be the worst option to think about, especially because of what's just happened. No one's going to go there because there's just no chance any sane person would. So, given I've already got him, I'm pretty tempted to hold on to him, knowing that his ownership will remain low. And that, again, given the minutes in the PSG game, he's got a decent chance of starting at least one of the two. So I don't hate it. I'd feel a lot more secure with Rodgers there over Asensio. And I have considered a -4 just to right that wrong. But your point earlier about whether or not I'd actually want to own them after the free hit is out of the way is a good one. I don't know whether I'm going to really need Villa unless they get the double in 36, which is possible, by the way. But am I going to buy a player just on the off chance they get a double? And again, on the off chance that his expected minutes massively outweigh Asensio, his teammate, for a -4? I don't know. It's a tough one. So differential on Asensio, I quite like. I wouldn't go with Marlon unless you're on a free hit, and even then, I probably still wouldn't go there. Rashford probably not now either. Choices are fairly limited at Villa.
I mean, I'm actually like quite tempted. I did actually have like Marlon in one of my free hit teams, just because it's like, well, if I buy Rodgers here, I might as well take him on actually because he's so highly owned. It's just a novelty for me to own him. But yeah, perfectly kind of good reasoning on owning Asensio. I mean, I think Villa are going to have the the motivation towards the end of the year to get back into the Champions League if they do lose tonight, which sadly looks like they're a couple of minutes from doing. And it's going to be all in on the league, so their fixtures aren't that great, and they've got everyone fit. So someone like Asensio going forward is, as you echoing what you're just saying, Sam, and echoing my own echo, it is probably something that's worth kind of bearing in mind, really. I mean, you're going to want this player going forward. Don't know if everyone's fit. It's when you kind of, at this point, if you're buying in a player like that, it's kind of thinking about the exit strategy, even with not very many games left. It's still something that's going to be in mind. So yeah, just keep that thought. Double Arsenal attack is another one. If you're looking at differentials, so you've got a couple of people on free hit looking at going double Arsenal attack. For reasons that kind of should be fairly obvious, I'm not entirely sure on that, just because the expected minutes for most of the Arsenal midfield are going to be curtailed, I think, somewhat. I do like kind of if someone has, I think a lot of it's going to depend on what happens tomorrow. But like I've seen a couple of people kind of mentioning Trossard, for example, in WhatsApp groups, which I don't mind. I wouldn't want you to ever own him in anything other than the free hit environment, but fine. Players like Odegaard haven't had the minutes this year. Marino, again, you would not be too surprised if he didn't play against Ipswich or was benched against Ipswich, depending on what sort of run around he gets versus Real Madrid, almost definitely in a central midfield role. So, although in theory it's a really good idea, the expected minutes for Raya and Saliba are very hard to overlook. Our defence is still incredibly mean. And then you've got Saka, and it feels like, Sam, that no matter whether you're free hitting or whatever you're doing, like if I wasn't free hitting, I'd just be buying Saliba and Saka this week. It sounds really boring. It sounds really dull, but unless you're really, really kind of struggling and want to shoot for the moon, that kind of feels like a case of keep it simple, stupid, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they do seem like pretty good clean sheet fixtures. I wouldn't be surprised if they get at least one, but it's possible they get two. So doubling up on the defense to me seems like a good way to bed in the expected minutes and also get a chance at maybe a double clean sheet there as well. I don't mind double Arsenal attack. It's just picking the right minutes there. Even Saka's a bit of a risk, let alone when you start looking at the Marinos, the Trossards, the Martinellis of the world. I'm not sure I'd go there myself, but yeah, if you're on a free hit, they're not bad attacking fixtures to go after. So yeah, it's all about gambling on who you think is going to be the X minutes darling of game week 33 for Arsenal. I can't confidently predict it. Outside of possibly Saka, but even that is a risk. So yeah, I probably wouldn't be personally going there, but I understand the temptation for anyone who is looking for a 1 week punt on an Arsenal mid.
Nope, of course not. Anyone else that kind of comes to mind? You mentioned Luis Diaz. I don't mind that at all. I do think it was a very short term move, and it should have probably been done last week. But Leicester and Spurs on the docket for the next two, and for Chelsea in 35 as well, haven't exactly been watertight. So not a bad kind of triad of fixtures coming up. So if you did want to go there, if you really fancy Diaz, then fine. But yeah, I don't know, Sam. Does anything else leap out to you? I'm not sure.
Not leap. I would say never ignore or neglect people like an Mbeumo or a Bruno Fernandes, who both have home fixtures, both against teams that are liable to conceding, and they've both got great data above 0.5, in fact, closer to 0.6 XGI per 90, and are incredibly good on the expected minutes week to week. So either of them could do quite well. I probably wouldn't put them ahead of many of the doublers, but yeah, again, any given game week, they're not bad options. So yeah, as little differentials, especially in Mbeumo, if you wanted to bring him in early ahead of the fixtures turning in game week 35, I don't mind an early move across to him now. If you are eyeing up trying to save transfers down the line. So yeah, I mean, we probably haven't talked about one player who is on a lot of thumbnails this week and is getting a lot of conversation around him, which is Kevin De Bruyne. As a differential, would you so you're on a free hit potentially, and he's an easier pick on a free hit. For a transfer, is there any universe you could see bringing him in, captaining him even? Is there logic there, Tom? Or would you say that if you're not on a free hit, it's just not worth the risk, longer term at least?
I just don't think it is. It depends on how many transfers you got in the bank, honestly.
Yeah.
If you've got loads, you've got the luxury of doing a move like that. City's fixtures are great towards the end of the year, and De Bruyne has said that, I'm playing without pain now.
Yeah.
And if you are kind of gambling on the fact that he's going to be playing, if they're out of the cup, it would be so much easier. Bloody hell, Bournemouth, why didn't do your job? But, as it is, I don't know whether even though Wolves and Southampton 35 and 36, it's so alluring, Sam. Honestly, very good for a free hit. Outside of the free hit, you go into it eyes wide open, is all I will say. And a lot of it relies on Haaland's prognosis, because, as has been mentioned in all sorts of places, and the way City are playing at the moment is probably suited to having no Haaland in their team. Once Haaland's back, they can need that width rather on the flanks rather than their wingers cutting inside. And De Bruyne's role does change again. So, yeah, it's a very sort of it's a risky pick. Kevin De Bruyne, ultimate nostalgia pick, and then I can't ever kind of turn down the opportunity to own him, especially now he's entering his very, very, very twilight zone in terms of his Premier League career. But I don't know, Sam. I can't really see it this week if you're not free hitting. I can see it in terms of the Andy Martin Hail Mary, and pick up the points and deal with the rest later. But I'm just not sure if I wasn't free hitting, or wasn't potentially free hitting, I should say, whether I would be kind of convinced enough. And I think that's probably where I would be on that one.
Yeah, I'd probably fall down on your side. I did consider a brief flirtation with triple captain KDB, as we all, or a lot of us know anyway. There is a bit of history around triple captain KDB in the community with a certain Andy Martin. So I thought maybe if I could get myself a little bit of that history on my side, that might help me out a little bit. But I'm just not as confident on the X minutes as he would have been 2, 3, 4 years, however many years ago it was now. I lose track. And yeah, I'm just not sure he's the same player as he was back then when he was a good triple captaincy candidate. So yeah, as tempting as it is for the nostalgia and for the romance, I'm not sure that long term it would be wise, especially considering I already regret bringing in Asensio, knowing that he's a minute's risk down the line, and I'm not even looking at triple captaining him. So if I bring in KDB and then he ends up being someone who kind of slaps me in the face with terrible expected minutes come game week 35, 36, I'm really going to regret that move because of the alternatives that I could have brought in at that price point. There's a lot more out there than at Asensio's price. So it's a much more painful move to get wrong. So yeah, I think it just makes sense maybe, unless you're on a free hit, maybe I'm just not confident enough. If you've got loads of transfers, you can do it for a week or two and you can take that gamble without needing a hit to correct it. If it goes wrong, then maybe that's fine. But
yeah,
not in my situation.
While we're here, Villa have just sadly been knocked out.
Yeah.
So does that bring someone like a Rashford onto the table potentially?
A little bit, maybe. He got good minutes tonight though, so I do wonder if maybe that first match in the double he's likely to get benched. But maybe we should look at the double as a whole. And if he gets benched in the first one, he's more likely to start the second one, right? So yeah, maybe not a bad shout. Rashford, if you can take some short-term pain, perhaps in the first of the two, the second one, he could come in clutch. So yeah, I don't hate it.
Yep, no, fair enough. A bit of thinking to get through there. But the Bionic Bunny of Rogers is going to play. So maybe just for someone like me, just keep it simple, stupid. All right. I think the final thing here is assistant managers. So again, it feels like boom or bust. If you went with Howe, I think that you're probably kind of quite happy, more happy than him, but hopefully he'll be on the mend soon. And if you went with Glasner, probably not as happy, although there was a moment, wasn't there? A beautiful moment, a beautiful 20 minutes when it looked like you had made the call of the season. But this week, I suppose, if you're looking to potentially move off Howe, which I'm guessing you are, or if you're stuck on Glasner, it does really feel like a bit of a boom or bust, doesn't it? Go with Glasner and hope that he does pull off the miracle against. I think it's only Arsenal, isn't it, that counts as table bonus, as far as I know.
Yeah, Bournemouth. Bournemouth wouldn't do that now. Yeah.
Well. So it's the Arsenal game that it's all on, or do you just go with Arteta and collect your 20 points in the same way that you probably will? If you have gone with Howe this week, maybe it would be Arteta for me, honestly, depending on how you've gone for the first time round. I think if you went with kind of quite a straightforward pick, maybe you went with went with Howe. I know that's what most people were actually looking at doing in 31. So you've got your 10 points for that, or 13 or whatever it is, and you've got your points for this week probably in the bag. I mean, 20, 40, 50 points from kind of safe managers is pretty decent, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. And honestly, given, I think last week I said I probably would go for Glasner in the first of the doubles. Now, looking at the game state and the situation on the board now, given that the Bournemouth game won't be table bonus and the fact that they probably will or are likely to rotate in the second game against Arsenal, I'm not quite so bullish on them now. And I think I probably would twist to an Arteta, possibly a Pep as well. I don't mind that as a shout, but probably more likely Arteta against Ipswich. You've got the chance for a few goals. You've got two decent clean sheet chances as well, which makes a difference. you've got a relatively good chance of 2 wins too. So yeah, I think I probably now would be tempted to go with Arteta in a dead heat between him and Glasner. I think Arteta would probably win out for me now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think just play it safe this week. Honestly, it's probably the last week if you're assistant manager. I think you just want the sure thing really to bring it home in the situation with precious little other options on the table. I do think it'd be those two. But, bear in mind that something could happen. West Ham versus Arsenal when Potter got away with all those points. But I mean, those things don't happen very often. Yeah, you have to be a proper soothsayer.
Who would you sacrifice if you got Arteta though?
It's true, isn't it? I'd probably
That's the
remove
thing.
probably one of the defenders. I wouldn't bother with those.
Yeah, you probably would have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was just mentioned in the chat. Maybe Pep as well is on the table for this week if you want. Because I'm guessing those people don't have a third city if you're assistant manager.
Yeah.
So that actually might work better. Thanks, Paul. if you are where you are, and most people will be tripped up in Arsenal. So yeah, maybe it would be Man City. This is why the chat's very useful because it reminds us of things that we haven't thought of. So yeah, one of those three makes a lot of sense, I think. Okay, final thing before we round off, bold claims. So yeah, it didn't quite happen, unfortunately for you.
We got to what 60 odd minutes, and then Southampton capitulated, but were able to ruin my weekend double down in the process. I did I did put as my bold claim Southampton to beat Villa, just because why not? Didn't happen clearly, but that didn't stop me from being miserable about my Aston Villa player I brought in either. So no happiness hedge there whatsoever. Tom, yours is still up in the air.
Yeah, it's a single game week top scores the game week. So Ramsdale 16-pointer, which I've clearly predicted through my own brilliance, is the score to beat. And I think we'll need to see. Eze's on 8, I think, isn't he? Something like that. And then we have, he's got the goal. Maybe on 7. Isaac is on 5, and Murphy's on 5. I don't know if there's any kind of higher scorers actually from Barnes actually. So yeah, but Barnes could actually get that pretty easily, couldn't he? Is he on 16 already? He's got a brace and got brace, got 2 bonus. So maybe it's just the FPL
15 or 16. Hang on, let me check while you carry on monologuing. Hang on.
Yeah. So I don't think this. 15. I don't think this is going to happen basically because Barnes just needs to play for 60 minutes and it's all gone. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a fairly decent punt. So if you want to go for that next week, Sam, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it, but instead I thought I'd go a little bit different. I went with Isaac with a single game week against Villa away from home to outscore both Saka and KDB. So 2 of the more popular buys in the midfield, both with double game weeks. Isaac to outscore both of them. Again, a little bit of happiness hedging there, perhaps. But yeah, I still really rate it as a fixture for Newcastle, especially against what would probably be a quite knackered Aston Villa and maybe even a slightly demoralised Villa as well. So yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Yep, fair enough. I'm going for Mo Salah to blank versus Leicester. If that's not bold, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I like it. I think one of us will be on the board this time next week. I think one of them's coming in.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right, okay. And teams and plans for the weekend.
Yeah, let's do it. So my team's first up. I am happy with my 11 generally. I've got double Arsenal defence, Raya, Saliba, Munoz and Gvardiol completing the back line. In the midfield, I've got Salah, Palmer, who will go, Sarr, Asensio at the moment. And then up top, I've got the triple up that most people seem to have, Isak, Mateta and Marmoush. Marmoush currently has the armband. That's because I haven't made my transfer yet. And my transfer is likely to be Palmer to Saka for free. The earlier in the week I go, the more options open up to me for the -4. So I've got the exact money right now to move Palmer to Saka. And for the -4, move Murphy to Rodgers. And then that would give me a bit of a benching headache. I could potentially even bench Isak away at Aston Villa. But I think for this exact reason, plus the fact that later on down the line it makes wiggle room on transfers. In fact, not even wiggle room. I don't have the funds free to make the future transfers I want to. If I was to spend that money on upgrading Murphy to Rodgers, I don't think it's a wise move to make. The other thing that I could look at doing is just binning off Asensio straight away, knowing that maybe it's an X minutes mistake, and just going straight to Rodgers for the -4 to back the expected minutes, save a bit of money in the process, and that opens up some avenues later on down the line. I think more likely at the moment, I will probably just do Palmer to Saka. And given that we've seen Asensio not start tonight in the Champions League, I back him to start at least one in the league and hopefully put right the wrongs that he did for us in game week 32. I think at this point, it's a fairly template side overall. A lot of people have landed on quite a similar lineup. So my swords, my edges would be an Asensio over a Rodgers. So am I giving that up for a -4? Seems maybe a little bit silly. And then triple captaincy. Am I going to use it this week or perhaps later on? I'm tempted to just bring in Saka and triple captain him. But like I said earlier, I think we have to wait to see what the situation is after Real Madrid for that one.
Even bringing in Saka and captaining him could be, given the way the wind is blowing right now, could be a thing. But that could be massively outdated by tomorrow. But that could be pretty decent. So yeah, I think your option one has been said in the chat as well. Miss T makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Just making that one move. I wouldn't be moving Asensio on if I were you. I'd just be kind of taking Rodgers on really, and then taking it from there. Yeah, team looks good, and you knew it looked good because you planned it. So there's this is just about kind of, I guess, shrugging off last week, which hopefully we've done actually over the course of this pod. I feel a little bit better about kind of I don't feel good about the direction of travel, but I feel good about FPL in general. Again. This is how it always gets you. Just when I thought I was out, it lures me back in, Sam.
Yeah.
Awful.
Every week we forget how painful it is, and then we get to the weekend and it happens all over again. And I'll dig out the old tweet that I always post when I have a terrible game week. Do you want to run through your team if you're not on a free hit, Tom, very quickly, or are you comfortable in the knowledge that you might free hit?
I think I've talked myself into it, but I'm pretty happy with it. If I was hit by a bus, the bus team is pretty good. So it's Raya in goal, Guardiola, probably like Milenkovic would come out for Saliba, Munoz at the back, and Asensio, Palmer go for Saka, Vermans for Salah, Sarr, and then Isaac, Marmouche, and Mateta.
My exact 11.
Exactly. And I don't mind it at all. It's just where I think as I said earlier on, the upside is going to be. Is it going to be in backing against Palace this week, which is effectively kind of backing against a lot of the community, or is it kind of next week where I just free hit when a lot of people on maybe the most orthodox chip plan are going to free hit? I don't know. I quite at this point. I think I'm probably, unless Isaac goes wild tomorrow, going to just about get out this week with a grey arrow. And it kind of feels like which one is going to be the optimal use for my chip. I fully appreciate you're not in the same position as me in terms of being able to come through due to the edge pieces next week with a decent-ish looking kind of 9-10. So you're in a slightly different position than me. But for me here, I do look at it and think, you know what, I probably could free hit this and probably could make up the difference to using that offensively in a sword way. Is probably maybe the best. Is maybe actually a good sort of differential for me. Like I said, I don't really believe in the thing called Palace, and I would want to be removing those players. I don't really have very high sort of hopes for their expected minutes. So that's kind of three players that I kind of look at this team and think, yeah, okay, I knew I was walking into this, but now I've got the opportunity to have an out. I'm kind of thinking I might, because when you get to 35, I don't know if I'm going to want them anyway for the end of the season. I mean, the Wolves game in 37, a bit of a glimmer of hope, but blank in 34. Forest at home in 35, Spurs in 36. Yeah, that's a good game. Wolves in 37, and then Liverpool in 38 versus kind of the plethora of other kind of options which are on the table. I don't know. I feel like taking the path less trodden, honestly,
Yeah,
at this point.
I like it.
And to be honest, I've got very little to lose. If I had done well this week and my rank was better, maybe I'd be feeling more cautious. But you've got to play what's in front of you. And for me, at this point, I feel like I'm going to maybe try that and see what happens. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But what's the difference between 200k, which is kind of where I am at the moment, and 400k? It's still a bit of a failure of the season, but at least I went down swinging. And try to kind of maximize the tools I had to try to kind of gain an advantage. So, yeah, I'm very tempted to free hit now after speaking to you, but I'm not going to be making any decisions. It may be by kind of the end of the week that I'm feeling a bit more sort of like, oh, it'll be all right. But I quite fancy it. I quite fancy kind of just trying to hope that kind of in a yet again the week of potential max variance on the table that it's going to shine in my direction. But hey, who knows? Maybe my 36th year is the most unlucky year I've ever had. Please don't be. Very, very hard.
There's always next year.
There's always next year, Sam. There's always next season, which is a mantra I think that we're both going to be telling ourselves over and over as we cry in the shower. Right. I think that's probably everything this week, isn't it?
I think so. I think we'll let you all go. And if those of you who have been watching us instead of Aston Villa, do go check out the highlights. It sounds like a belter. That's what I'll be doing after this. But yeah, thank you very much for your time and your patience in us ranting away at our miseries from game week 32. We do really appreciate it. As always, we have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at WGTA or FPL Pricey. You can find us on X at WGTA_FPL or FPL Pricey on there as well. Instagram or Threads is WGTA.FPL. FPL Pricey on there as well. And if you did enjoy the pod, if you could do one or ideally all of the following, including following us on those social channels, giving the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, and if you're watching along on YouTube, leaving a like, hitting subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. All of those things really do help us out.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Oh, it's very therapeutic in doing the pod. I feel like we've made a breakthrough today. We hope we assist you think about double game week 33 and the myriad different ways you can approach it, and also offer you some Schadenfreude for our failures in 32. Back in this week, maybe we'll see if we can slot Wednesday, just because it's the last day of the week. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. To preview blank game week 34, look at Sam's free hit. I may have used mine. Who knows? Have a lovely weekend. Easter weekend as well. So have a lovely Easter weekend if you are celebrating in the Christian way or whatever other denominations celebrate it. And we'll see you next Tuesday or maybe next Wednesday. Who knows?
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?